right, guys, so today we're going to continue working on one-step equations. So on the screen here, you see the four basic examples of one-step equations. In the yellow box here is an example of a mystery number plus 14. We have addition going on with our variable. So to undo it, the opposite of addition is subtraction. So we subtract on both sides. And again, the goal of an equation is to get the variable by itself. So our answer here, y, our unknown number, is equal to 6. In the green box, you see subtraction is with the variable, so x minus 120. So again, the opposite operation of subtraction is to add 120 on both sides, and our answer for this one would be x equals 200. In the pink box there is a multiplication example. Our equation is 3 times n. So to undo multiplication, we divide by 3, and we do that on both sides, and they cancel out and leave us with the answer of n equals 4. The blue box is the last operation, which is division. So we've got a variable divided by 2 is equal to 16. So to undo division, we multiply by 2 on both sides. So then again, our answer is our variable by itself, and in this case, k equals 32. So looking at those four examples, those were all using integers, right? All whole numbers, positive and negative numbers. So today we're going to take a look at completing your note sheet on page 10, which at the top you see fractions and decimals. Oh my! These types of numbers can also be found in one-step equations, but what you have to remember is the operation or how you go about solving the problem is exactly the same as you did with integers. And also to kind of to point out, and I have it here in your note sheet, that sometimes students panic when answers are decimals or fractions, thinking that they did something wrong. Actually, it's probably more common in the real world that you get fractions and decimals. And if you think about it, if your problems have fractions, you're most likely going to get a fractional answer. And if you're working with decimals, a decimal answer makes sense. So sometimes I tell students, kind of take a look at what kind of numbers are in your problem, and your answers are most likely going to be similar to that. So let's kind of just hone in. First, we're going to start off a little bit basic, and we're going to go to the decimals. So take a look at our decimals. So decimals aren't tricky to calculate. Just be sure to be mindful not to lose your dot. So we'll save those fractions for later this week. So here in our note packet, we've got 6 examples that we're going to work our way through. And again, I encourage you to use a calculator. Decimals are a little bit harder to compute in your head, and using a calculator is completely acceptable. So I'm going to go ahead and get my calculator up and ready for when I need it. All right, so taking a look at this first example in the top left, we have y divided by 5 equals negative 2.1. So if I look again, in your mind, you want to think about, okay, where is the side with my variable and what is the operation acting on the variable? So in this case, we have y divided by 5. So the opposite of division would be to multiply. So we're going to multiply by 5 on both sides. And again, try to stay away from using an x to show the multiplication, because in algebra that looks more like a variable. So when you multiply by 5, again, these are opposites, so they're going to cancel, and we're left with just y, which is the goal of our solving equation, because we want to figure out what that mystery number, that unknown number, is. So then on the right, we have our computation of negative 2.1. And we're going to multiply that by 5. And we get an answer of negative 10.5. All right, moving across over to the top right, we have x plus 8.1 equals negative 1.8. So again, here's the side with my variable. You should be able to see that it is addition acting on the variable. So our opposite operation would be to subtract, so that again, our number cancels, just hanging out with the variable. Opposites cancel. So we're left with x equals, grab your calculator here. Move it over, here we go. So we have negative 1.8 minus 8.1. And you get the answer of negative 9.9. So again, the operations of how you go about solving these one-step equations is exactly the same. We're still using inverse operations to isolate or get that variable by itself. Just be careful when you're putting your calculations in the calculator that you are mindful of the decimal, that you're including it in your operation. All right, taking a look at the middle one here on the left, we have v minus 2.4 equals negative 4.7. So again, the operation that I see with my variable is a minus, so I would add on both sides to get rid of it. Using the calculator here, we have negative 4.7 plus 2.4, and we get negative 2.3. Looking here in the middle right, we have 9s equals negative 4.5. The operation between those would be multiplication. So my opposite operation is to divide. We do it on both sides. So we have s equals, again, my operation here is division. So we have negative 4.5, and we're going to divide it by 9 and get the answer of negative 0.5. Okay, bottom left, h plus 5 equals negative 7.5. So here's the side with my variable. You notice that it's addition, so I'm going to do subtraction to eliminate it. And we get h equals negative 12.5. And the last one here on the right looks a little bit more daunting, right? Remember that fraction that you think you see right here, b is actually division. So b divided by negative 0.4 is equal to negative 9.6. So the opposite operation would be to multiply. So grabbing my calculator, I have negative 9.6 times negative 0.4, and we get 3.84. Now, I do encourage you to go back and check your answers. We've looked at this earlier this week. And remember, when we're checking your answers, we're going back and plugging in that number that you found to be your answer. So if I scoot back up to the top here, this answer of negative 10.5 for y, to check that, I would go back to my original equation and say, okay, this negative 10.5 is actually my y value. That's what I think it is. So negative 10.5, when I divide it by 5, I should get the answer of negative 2.1. So again, I encourage you to check your work. You don't always have to write down the check, but it is a quick calculation that you can do in your calculator that can help assure that you have the right answer. So in your calculator, you could say negative 10.5 and divide it by 5, and I should be, again, getting that answer of negative 2.1. So let me go ahead and enter. And I do, in fact, get the answer that is established in the problem. So if I take a look at this one in the middle on the left, a mystery number or an unknown number minus 2.4 equals negative 4.7. We, through solving our equation, decided that that mystery answer or that mystery number was negative 2.3. So I'm going to write it here so that you can see kind of where I'm plugging it in. And in your calculator, try that again, it looks a little confusing there. So again, I would be plugging in my answer for where the variable was. So negative 2.3 minus 2.4. And again, I'm looking at my answer on my calculator and comparing it. Again, when I put this computation in, I should be getting the outcome that's listed in my equation in order to know that I am correct. And I am. Negative 4.7 is the same as my answer in the equation. Bottom left here, so if we have h plus 5 equals negative 7.5, and I'm going to kind of take out our work just so you can kind of see clearly the check. We went through the problem, we solved it and said, hey, I think my h stands for negative 12.5. That's what that value is. So again, you would be plugging it in for your variable, replacing the variable, and then doing the computation in your calculator, and we should be getting the answer that is listed in the equation, which is negative 7.5. So again, we have 12, negative 12.5, and we're adding on 5. Again, we're hoping for that negative 7.5, and indeed we do get that in our calculator, and again, established in our equation. So again, You don't have to check your work. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to. You don't have to show the check. I showed you the check on the paper and kind of wrote it out for you so you could see how I was getting what I was putting in my calculator. But it is a quick and easy way that you could do an extra computation just to assure that you're getting the problem correct. So for your assignment today, on page 11, you'll see that there are 8 problems for you to try. Again, they're all one-step equations, so you're looking at specifically what is going on with the variable, using the opposite operation, and a calculator to do your computations. So for all of them, for that first one that I highlighted, z plus 1.2 equals 7. The opposite would be to subtract. So you're going to subtract 1.2 from both sides and work your way through those 8 problems. I do encourage you to check them so that you know that you are correct. And again, the computations of decimals aren't too tricky. Just be mindful when you're putting them in your calculator to make sure that you're including the number as you see it and including those decimals. If you need any more help, reach out. Good luck.